Hi there, and welcome to Big Tiny Adventure Winter Edition. Yes, it's feeling very chilly now. We've just tipped over into the winter season. So today we're looking at building a tiny house, which is why you're here, is it? Going a step further, and you're even thinking of building a semi-trailer tiny house. You've maybe even been looking at Mike's videos and think, this is pretty cool, actually. Well, you're in luck. Today we're going to look at my top 5 pros and cons for building in a ex-refrigerated semi-trailer. Let's go. So let's start with our top 5 pros for living in a semi-trailer tiny house. Number 1 is because they're huge. This beast is 13 meters long by 2.5 meters wide by 2.7 meters high inside. And this one is 12 meters by 2.5 by 2.7 high. And there's just so much space inside these to work with. They are big boxes, so lots of big open space to work with, no weird corners or angles or shapes. And just very, very generous proportion for a bargain price. And number 2, as you might have guessed, is price. So these two beauties back here, made of fiberglass, aluminium, and steel, are totally roadworthy, built for the road, heavy duty, 15 tons of weight each, dry weight. They are completely ready with walls, floor, and roof. And the combined total for these two, total floor space, 64 square meters of usable space, is only $10,000 Australian. So you're not going to find even a base trailer for a smaller, like half that size, tiny house for that total price. So absolute bargain and a great reason to use a semi-trailer. So number 3 is ease of build. So the beautiful thing about this is it's a big structurally insulated panel, a box. And all you have to do if you say want to put a door or window in is to cut the hole the accurate size, put a little bit of weatherproofing in, slide your window and door in there. You don't have to worry about framing, load-bearing walls, getting all that kind of level and plumb and all that kind of stuff. Basically, for a first-time builder, this is a breeze. And same with going and working inside. You're not restricted by weight. There's absolutely no weight restrictions with this. You could put marble floors or concrete bench tops in, and it would all be fine. And the great thing is that you just are working within this space. You're not having to worry about the overall structure, which is completely sound. So number 4 would be weight and safety on the road. As you can see, this big baby is meant to be towed by a giant tractor, prime mover, and it can tow this vehicle, which can weigh up to 35 tons at its max. So not only are you getting the benefit of endless whatever you want to put inside this, but on the road you're getting a very, very stable vehicle. This one's got airbag suspension, it's got giant wheels, it's made for the road, it's going to be towed by something that can tow the weight easily, winds no problem. You're not going to have any kind of issues with peace of mind as this thing gets moved to its forever home. So this is a huge consideration, given that that's probably one of the primary worries when building a typical traditional tiny house. And I suppose this one is a debatable one. We've got no loft. So depending on whether you like the idea of the loft, which does, admittedly give for a high ceiling, I personally am happy that we didn't have that option, because building all on the same kind of floor level means no climbing up ladders and, the up and down and the small headroom of a loft and all the kind of little difficulties that come with living in that kind of space. We don't have that. We have a beautiful bedroom space. We've built this lift bed, which does get out of the way if we want to give us more space and utilize that space more. But really, I'm happy with high ceilings, high enough ceilings, like a traditional house, and no need to build a very, very high, very tall building. And a final bonus to the whole semi-trailer build would be maybe keeping this huge amount of metal and fiberglass out of landfill. These trailers are inexpensive because they're basically considered to be industry waste. And so by deciding to build in a tiny house from a ex-refrigerated semi-trailer, you're basically keeping 15 tons of waste from rusting and rotting in a field or in the tip. So yeah, great way to recycle. So we looked at the pros to a semi-trailer build, but what about the cons? Well, for number one, you're building out of an old vehicle. So the building process will be a bit dirty. It will be lots of rust, and you have to contend with damage in different places, adapting how you build a space. There's a lot of imperfections, like right angles in the walls. Some things are bowed out. We had to fix areas that were damaged in the roof. Choosing one is very important, and it really depends on how much you want to pay in terms of how much damage you're willing to kind of deal with. If you're going to pay $5,000 for something that originally costs $150,000, then you're going to have to be dealing with the fact that you're looking at a high mileage vehicle that has rust, has potential tire issues, brake issues, and any number of things that might have infiltrated it over potentially millions of kilometers of road use. So it really just comes down to your what you're willing to accept and what you're willing to fix. And but luckily, because you're not going to be putting this on the road for long periods of time, you're not looking necessarily for a roadworthiness that would need to be what people would have when they're hauling transport and goods. So as long as it's stable enough for building in and for the occasional move, then you're probably all right with a fairly old vehicle. Number two is boxiness. If you're not a big fan of something that looks like a big box, then this is a little bit harder to disguise. Obviously, a pro was the amount of space that you have, but like when you look at the traditional cute little tiny houses that exist, on for the last couple of decades throughout the countryside, with their little peaked roofs and all the cute little details that you can add. You can add obviously things to these, and we haven't bothered because we just have found a spot that is fairly quiet, and we don't need to kind of make it look pretty. If you're someone who wants the kind of micro-sized cute little cottage kind of thing, then this is a little bit harder to make look like that. So if you don't like boxiness, then maybe this isn't for you. So, follow on from the last one was the boxiness also means that you've got a flat roof. And with a flat roof, of course, you can't do rainwater catchment. So it probably would be a serious consideration if you were someone who, say, had to be off-grid and wanted to maximize how much you could use of your local resources. So, a flat roof is a bit tricky in that regard. Probably can be done. I think if you're willing to put a false roof on top that had even the slightest incline, you should be able to do some decent rainwater capture. And we're also talking about 32 square meters of roof here that is actually going to give you a lot of water capture if you can get something on top. But we've got skylights on our main house, and that makes it a little bit harder to work a roof around. And so yeah, maybe on this secondary trailer we'll be able to do it. So con number 4 is the giant tires that you have to contend with. This is one of 6 on our main house, and we've got 12 on the other one. Now, if you're not driving them around very much, it's not a huge deal in terms of like having to replace them regularly or anything because of tread or whatever. Because they actually cost brand new, they cost $1,000 each. Though you can get them secondhand if you're not going to be using them for driving much, for probably about 1/10 of that price. Obviously, with the tires, by keeping the tires on here, you keep maintain the height, which is kind of a nice feature of these things, is that you're actually raised off the ground, better for views, better to be able to do things underneath. But they are something that you have to protect. And if you do leave them on here, you're going to have to make sure that they don't crack and they don't wear, because they're basically holding your entire house up. And so if the wheels and the tires go, then you're in trouble. So there's the element of maintenance, aging over time, cracking and repair. We've had one blowout on the other van. So yeah, all things to consider when getting a semi-trailer. So number 5 would be ease of moving and having to move in a pinch. I suspect that probably with all tiny houses, there's an element of still a difficult situation if you had to move, like say immediately, because often you build a little deck, or you have infrastructure, things connected to the house and so on. Semi-trailers, I guess, arguably maybe a little bit harder. As you can see, we've got the giant pin here, which is where our semi-trailer, our truck trailer, tractor will pull in and lock in. So that's the key thing. If you don't have access to a truck driver easily, you're going to have to go onto a website, or if you know somebody that has one, and get one organized. That might not be immediate. It might even take days or even maybe a week or two to find someone to do it. And if you need to move in a pinch for whatever reason, whether it be bushfire risk, or maybe you've just been knocked off your property for whatever reason, it's not like you can just hook up some sort of Ford F-150 or other consumer vehicle and pull it away. It takes a little bit more organization, and to make sure that the tires and the brakes and the suspension and everything is kind of up to scratch, the electrics, before you can just haul off with it safely down the road. Well, there you go, folks. Thanks for joining me. I hope that will help you a little bit with making any kind of decision on a potential semi-trailer tiny house. Be sure to hit me up in the comments if you want a little more of a buyer's guide of sorts in terms of trying to find out a little bit more information about this type of thing. I'll be looking to talk to somebody who deals with the sales of semi-trailers, and maybe we can interview them to give you a little more insight of what to look for, and some insider knowledge about that industry. So please join us again in future videos on this subject. Like I said, any kind of questions you have or comments, leave them below, and please like and subscribe. Thanks for joining me on Big Tiny Adventure.